This year's Cardano Summit was the third time that I've run into Pi from SundaeSwap, and we finally got a chance to sit down and talk about their project. The fact that we've been going back and forth for over a year now actually added a really cool tone to the conversation, because it gave us a chance to look back and do a retrospective on how the ecosystem has grown and how SundaeSwap has been at the bleeding edge of a lot of those things that have gotten us to this point. We talked about things that I know that you care about, like ISO and reverse ISO rewards, and then some of the topics at the end were so exciting that we decided, you know what, let's just have a whole other conversation dedicated to this. I learned a lot, it left me really excited, and now here's my conversation with Pi from SundaeSwap. Welcome back to Woodland Pools, everybody, and welcome back to the Cardano Summit 2022. We are here with Pi from SundaeSwap. Pi, it's so good to finally have a chance to sit down and chat.
Yeah.
I think we met for the first time just over a year ago, I think, at the Cardano Summit in Wyoming.
Yeah.
And we've just run into each other a bunch of times since then, and we keep saying, hey, we should talk at some point, and I'm glad that we finally had a chance to actually sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I've got a bunch of things I'm doing today, but I had a gap, so I'm happy to sit down with you.
Yeah, and thank you for making the time. So let's just jump right into it. I think at this point, most people know what SundaeSwap is, right? But let's say for the few people out there that kind of don't, well, what is SundaeSwap at a high level?
Sure. So I'm Pi. I'm the CTO of SundaeSwap. SundaeSwap was one of the first DEXs, the first automated market maker DEX. And it really serves that kind of core ecosystem need of, I have one token and I want a different one. How do I exchange that? And so, we launched back in January, and we've been kind of working on some things behind the scenes ever since.
Yeah, and you guys, with the automated, I mean, you guys were from the very beginning, very, very early on. I remember hearing, and we were doing updates on the channel on testing that you guys were doing long before, when the Plutus smart contract stuff was really raw. You guys were in it and working on that stuff, right? And so. So what was that process like? Working with IOG, and because you guys have a very close relationship with them, and wasn't a C fund invested in you guys as well, right? And so on many levels, you guys have a close relationship with them. What's that been like working with IOG and sort of having that tight knit relationship?
Yeah, so like you said, we started pretty early. The kind of idea for SundaeSwap was in April. I joined the team very early May, and so I like to tell people, it felt like being a programmer in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
We were having to program without any tools, right? Without any of the modern day step through debugger type tools. We were having to hand optimize assembly code, and we were worried about if 16 kilobytes, we had to fit everything within that, and so it felt very much like that kind of early days of computing, but in this strangely futuristic setting, right? So it was, in a lot of ways very rough. We had to figure out a lot of things on our own. At one point we had a custom version of the Cardano node so that we could insert extra logging so that we could even just figure out what was going on and stuff. And it was really that roughness that drove us to develop that relationship with IOG. We heard that IOG was doing a kind of road mapping session, and so I got on a plane and I flew to London, and I was like, I want to talk to you about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, it was well received, and that kind of started our relationship. We don't have any kind of anything particularly close. Just
right.
We chat with them, we give them feedback, they give us feedback on what we're doing and things like that. And working with them has been really great. They're very receptive and very kind of open. They made some missteps as a very academic focused organization. Especially through the Alonzo hard fork, they started thinking about the end user later in the process than they should have.
Sure.
And that was kind of one of the primary pieces of feedback we gave them, and it's been really cool to see them take and react to that feedback.
Yeah.
And so things like Hydra and the newly announced Midnight, they're seeking input from developers building on their platforms much, much earlier, and I think that's a huge positive step in the right direction.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I remember when you guys first launched, you were sort of the first real dApp that came with volume to the chain, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we talked about was if you guys remember from the video way back, I was I made a specific video about tempering expectations, right? And it's because you and I had been in communication, and I was okay guys, day one, let's expect that things are kind of going to take a while here. And then there was of course all those FUD articles about swaps are taking several days or whatever else. But it's been an incredible, journey to observe how not just SundaeSwap, but Cardano as an ecosystem, how we've gone from this thing where like, okay, the chain is still running, it's not collapsing or anything, but it's under load and things are moving really, really slow at a crawling pace, to like the amazing Hydra demo that you guys showed. And we just showed like a little clip of that on one of our update videos. But that was absolutely incredible. I mean, just the fact that it was like click, done, right? So so maybe if you can talk a little bit more about that. I'm kind of hopping all over the place. There's other questions I wanted to ask you, much earlier ones, but we'll get to those. But now, since we're on this subject, maybe tell us a bit more about Hydra on Sunday and kind of like what the plans are there. Like, I know that you made it very clear, and I made sure to point out that it's still very much in the testing phase. It's not something that's going to go to mainnet tomorrow. But how is that going? How are you guys feeling about it? And sort of like roughly, what does that roadmap look like for doing those kinds of really quick, almost nearly instant swaps?
Yeah, for sure. So to set the stage a little bit, for those who don't know, we launched back in January, and we were, potentially the most anticipated project on Cardano.
Yep.
Some people kind of theorize that we may have been one of the most anticipated crypto projects in general, just with the volume that we were facing.
Right.
And we faced a lot of criticism for that, but I think it was really the right choice, right? Cardano really needed that proving ground to transition from a primarily payments-based system to a smart contract system.
Yeah.
And we learned so much about the boundaries of the system. We learned that wallets needed to strengthen their infrastructure. We learned, how blocks propagated through the network under that kind of load. And it was really, if there was ever going to be an adversarial denial of service attack on Cardano, we knew in theory, but we had no kind of real world example of what that would look like.
What's going to happen if the chain is sitting at 99% load for hours and hours, right?
Right. Yeah. And so, I know it was really painful, and I know it created a lot of embarrassment for people. But at the end of the day, like, we told IOG, hey, we think this is going to be a thing. And they said, okay, well, we want to see it happen before we bump the protocol parameters, right? So people were like, why didn't you just wait a few weeks for them to bump the parameters? And it was really us launching that started that process.
Yeah.
And I think the longest that anybody waited for their order was 9 days, and that's just like unimaginable, right? Like, so I definitely feel people's pain through that process, and so that started us down the road. We were already thinking about it before our launch, but it like really started kind of catalyzing in our mind, like, okay, Cardano is going to scale, yes, and I just gave a talk on that. Go watch the recording. But like, what's the next step, right? Because obviously, if something has to achieve consensus globally across the entire world, there's certain limitations to how much scale it can handle. Right. And so you have to start making those trade-offs. You have to start saying, not everybody needs to hear about every transaction. And that's really what Hydra is about. And so that's why we started investigating that. So we gave this demo at Rare Bloom. Like you said, it's nowhere near mainnet. We wouldn't launch with what we had built. It's even possible that we won't go with Hydra, right? Or we'll go with Hydra. We're looking at Hydra plus other aspects, right? Kind of our blanket term for this is the gummy worm protocol. But it was a really exciting step on that research and development journey that we showed off. And so it was a Hydra head, which is, we had 2 different nodes running, and they basically lock funds in a smart contract on the layer 1, do whatever the hell they want off-chain, and then at the end say, okay, well, here was the final balance, right? So you and I could transact 1 million times back and forth, and we only ever send one transaction to the layer 1. And so we demoed that, and working with the Hydra team, to your earlier question, has been fantastic. They've been super responsive and everything there. So
that's so cool, and it's funny. We did a whole video on like a deep dive. When I think it was K2RZ put out that whole article on how Hydra is going to work. I went through that into like a deep dive into like how Hydra heads were going to work, and you basically took my 15-minute video and distilled it down to like a couple of sentences of like that. I think that explanation of sort of like, we can go back and forth as much as we want, and at the end of the day, just the final balances, that's what makes it the chain, and that's the only thing that everybody else cares about, right? So that's really cool. The other piece too, that I was going to ask earlier, but I think this is actually probably a great transition to kind of circle back to it, is, you guys were, Muesli Swap came out, and you guys were the first automated market maker that came out. but since then now we've got like half a dozen or more dexes. And so what do you think sets SundaeSwap apart from these other projects? And maybe this is kind of a leading question because, you know, sort of some of it is that you guys are always like bleeding edge with some of these things, but maybe it's that, maybe it's what else. Like, in your mind, like, what is it that is really the distinguishing factor that makes SundaeSwap different from some of the other options that are out there?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a lens that I usually look at things through.
Sure.
We're all building on Cardano, and I'm not trying to figure out, you know, how to edge out the competition or anything like that. I'm excited by everybody that's building and the variety and the choice that users have.
Sure.
But I think that one thing that does make us unique is our focus on that that user experience, right? Like really, you know, our V1 UI was kind of heralded as like a really slick, simple, clean experience for people who wanted to swap, and we're taking that to the next level with the V2 UI that we're building. Another thing that makes us unique is, like you said, we're always trying to push the boundary of, you know, you can wait for the systems to be there for you to build on, or you can push that envelope and help build those systems there. And so that's something that we're always trying to do. First with Alonzo, we were the first people to demo working smart contracts, like deployed somewhere on Alonzo, kind of not running localhost. And then we were the first people to demo something running on Hydra. As far as I know, we were the first people in the world to run smart contracts on Hydra. I was talking with the Hydra team, and and I said, "Oh, look what we just got working," and they said, "Oh, well, we haven't even tested that yet. You know, we know in theory it works, but you know, we've just been doing payment transactions." So being on that bleeding edge is painful at times, but it's really exciting and something I think we do really well as a team.
And I think that it's an absolute, you know, huge benefit for the entire ecosystem. And I think, like, honestly, it's something that, and that's why I want to, you know, I've not sat down and done an interview with any of the other dexes, right? And like, and part of the reason why I want to chat with you is just credit where credit's due. I think you guys, as a project, have been such a huge benefit to the whole ecosystem, because these things that you're pushing and these like walls that you're running into, as you said, have been what kind of, you know, then make IOG think about like, oh, okay, well, maybe we need to look at these parameter changes, or maybe we need to like move up in our roadmap these other things that we work on. And so, you know, congratulations to you guys, because that's an absolutely like incredible thing that you guys have been doing to really help move everything forward. So, you know, thanks for that, you know.
Thanks. It's really good to hear that. And, you know, it warms my heart because, you know, we definitely have made mistakes at times, right? Like our ISO, you know, shifted the stake way more than we ever anticipated it to. You know, I'm not necessarily one to doomsay over it like some people did, but it did have an impact. And so, and, you know, our launch was, you know, as much as we tried to brace people, it created some embarrassment in the ecosystem and stuff like that. So we've definitely made mistakes, but it's good to know that, you know, what we're doing is appreciated. Yeah,
well, so that brought to mind three different things. The first one is that, like, the whole point of growing pains is that you're growing, right? And so, like, I think that's, you know, like, it's going to happen. It's how you're going to find those edges, right? The second one, to your point, there's multiple occasions that I thought it was really cool that there was either something that SundaeSwap was planning on doing or actually did do or whatever else, and then afterwards, due to like feedback from the community, I think you guys have on multiple occasions been very receptive and very responsive to turning things around, saying, "Hey, we heard you guys, you know, and you know, here's either we're not going to do this thing anymore, or here's our attempt to make it right." And so I think that's absolutely fantastic. And then to the point of the ISO, like, yeah, there was a lot of you know, drain that kind of, to your point, they moved to unexpectedly. I think once again, I think you guys maybe didn't anticipate how popular you know, that program would be. But to your credit, though, then the reverse ISO that came in, again, I want to thank you for that, because we had like a decent amount of delegators that came in as part of that program, and also for the delegators that came as part of the reverse ISO and have stuck around, we really appreciate it. But I think, like, thank you guys for doing that, you know, because that, you know, it really did. It was a very tangible and notable thing of that delegation going right back out again to smaller pools and single pool operators. But with that comes the obvious question that, you know, like, you know, is coming. Yeah, exactly, the one that you're waiting for, that like that people have been asking for a long time is when reverse ISO rewards, right? So so can you give us some idea of like what that timeline is roughly looking like, and even if it's going to be soon, that's great. If it's going to be a while, that's fine too. But let's like maybe set some expectations for people, like when that's going to be and what it's going to look like when that happens.
Sure, absolutely, and we haven't forgot. hopefully now that you've seen the Hydra demo and you've seen the governance portal that we've built, we have just felt that given that people, are still claiming their ISO rewards through drip drops,
Yep.
there were just higher impact things we could focus on, getting yield farming stable and things like that. But that being said, SundaeSwap is allergic to timeline, so I won't give any specific timeline other than what we've told people before is before the end of the year, so that's coming up. And I could say, it's what I work on my laptop on my flight over here.
Oh, okay.
So I was writing the code for it, so we're working on it. I said that, our top priority after we kind of launched governance with some of these projects that are using our governance portal was going to be the RISO rewards, so we're getting that squared away now. So
cool.
I'm not giving any specific timelines, but I want you all to know that we haven't forgotten and we're working on it, and those should be available soon.
Cool. And so then with that, what's that going to look like, the mechanism on how people will be able to claim those?
So it'll look very similar to yield farming in that there'll be a web portal. You connect your wallet.
Yeah.
It'll look up your stake address.
Yeah.
It'll say, you earned this many tokens
during that period. Yeah.
Or through the ISO. So
right.
the same mechanism for both. And then you click claim, and then you just have to pay the ADA transaction fee.
Yeah.
It doesn't involve any smart contracts, so it'll be like 0.18 ADA to
cool.
claim kind of any tokens. So we'll build that transaction, and we do this like kind of dual signing system. So that's how we plan for it to work.
Nice. Well, and thanks for the candid answer there. And it's funny how you're saying like no timelines, but before the end of the year, that's creeping up. So so let's just be generous and say in the next few months. How about that? Cool. So with all of that, we've been talking about all the bleeding edge stuff that you guys have been doing and really pushing these boundaries. What are you most excited about here? I think a fun way to ask this, because you guys have been sort of at that boundary and always pushing things forward, I'll ask you sort of this question in like a two-part thing. What are you most excited about for SundaeSwap? And then also, similarly, what are you most excited to see about the Cardano ecosystem moving forward? And maybe those things are hand in hand, or they could be separate, but what are your thoughts on those things, or what are you most excited about moving forward?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about the governance solution that we've built. We've built essentially kind of a custom layer 2 voting protocol where it costs nothing for people to vote. And we think that that's really key to getting high engagement, which is really important for governance. I gave an interview to the Cardano Foundation earlier where I said, I think that governance and this kind of communal self-governance through protocol, deciding how we are going to live our lives by a code that we all are running, is the point of crypto, right? Money is kind of the killer app, but the point of crypto is this notion of governance and this notion of self-determination. And so I'm really excited about that. We're going to be expanding that out with a lot of flexible options for people, ranked choice voting, multiple choice. Right now we're working on, so you can cast your vote off-chain where it doesn't cost anything.
Sure.
But we're also implementing the ability to cast your vote on-chain if you just want to be 100% sure that it, is censorship resistant and things like that. And that will support things like hardware wallets. So I'm really excited about that whole branch of governance. We're also starting kind of hand in hand with our Hydra effort, research and development into a version 2 of the smart contracts. So, with everything that we've learned over the last year and a half, and out from under the time crunch pressure of wanting to launch early in the Cardano ecosystem, what would a SundaeSwap V2 look like? So we're still a long ways away from that, but that's very exciting. In terms of Cardano as a whole, there's just so many, right? I'm really excited about Mithril. Specifically, Mithril in the way that IOG is advertising it is really cool. Of light wallets can sync very fast. But as a general purpose mechanism that other protocol authors like SundaeSwap or anybody building on Cardano can use to say, we want the majority of stake pool operators to attest to this fact.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah, those signatures can actually be anything.
They can be anything,
right?
So you could use them for roll-ups and validiums and things like that.
Cool.
I think that's really, really exciting. I was just in Edinburgh yesterday at
Scotfest.
I didn't get to attend Scotfest just because the timeline didn't line up. but at the tail end they had a workshop for midnight.
Right. Okay. Oh yeah. Which was we made a video about it in my hotel room, and it published I think yesterday or the day before. Super exciting stuff. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I got to meet up with a bunch of other people building on Cardano that IOG invited. We got to see a live demo of Midnight. So that is super exciting technology. So I'm super excited about that. Super excited about the people building on Cardano.
Yeah.
So MinSwap's been doing some really cool things. MuesliSwap is doing really cool things. Orbis, very ambitious, and but if they can pull it off, I think that'll be really impressive. It's such an exciting time to be a fellow builder on Cardano.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things too where it's incredible where even just like I said, even just in the amount of time since we've met a little over a year ago to now, how much has changed. Mm-hmm. It's been like exponential, the amount of new projects, new technologies, new innovative ideas people are coming out with. It's been, I mean, I totally agree from the Cardano standpoint. And it's actually gotten to a point where with the channel, it's now become impossible to cover everything. Yeah. Right. So so now what I decided is I'm just gonna just focus on a few very specific projects that I'm a fan of. I think they're doing good work, and then just really dig into those because there's just so many great things that are happening. Yeah. But so sorry, not to run too long here, but I wanted to follow up on your question about, rather your statement about governance and the way you guys are doing with the voting. If we could just follow up on that a little bit, because I think you'd mentioned a couple of things there that maybe I haven't been familiar with, and so I assume people in the community are not as well. When you talk about all these different things that are going to be implemented with governance, is the idea for that primarily for people to be able to do governance within Sundae, or is it now you're going to offer sort of governance as a service where then people can use it for anything similar to what a Votaire or an enhanced version of that?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So all these features will be available to SundaeSwap, obviously.
Right.
But as we were building this, we realized there was nothing SundaeSwap specific about it.
Right.
And so we actually have NMaker and Disco Solaris have launched their own governance portals using our solution.
I did not know that. That's so cool.
And even the so did you vote for speakers or awards with the Cardano Foundation? Their backend was using our
that's so cool.
Governance rollout
that's
solution.
So cool.
So if you're a project out there that wants governance for your small community, a stake pool operator for your delegator, votes for your delegators, reach out to us. The people we've talked to said that our prices are very reasonable. And we're just really excited to provide kind of that business to business or business to community offering, so that we really bring governance as a notion to Cardano.
I have so many more questions that just came to my mind. So we'll stop it there. But this already is now a thing that I'd love to have a conversation with you just about this because
let's schedule something maybe mid-December.
Yeah, there's so many cool things that immediately my gears are going so fast now, and so many other questions I'd like to ask you. But,
for sure.
But we'll hold that off. And we'll have a sort of a dedicated conversation based on that. But so with that kind of open-ended thing, anything that you want people in the community to know about SundaeSwap, or things that maybe we haven't covered, or anything that you'd like to parting thoughts for folks?
Oh, this question is always hard because it's always catches you on the spot.
Yeah.
Just thank you for everybody who kind of has supported us, and walking through the hallway at the Cardano Foundation. So many people stop me to say thank you for what you're doing, and sometimes it feels like we don't deserve it. But thank you for your continued support. Thank you to everybody who voted for me to be a speaker here at the Cardano Summit. I hope to keep building for years to come.
Yeah, you guys have been absolute trailblazers, and it's been really great to see the work that you guys have been doing. Pi, it's so great that we finally got a chance to sit down. Thank you so
Likewise.
much for the time. If you guys have any questions for Pi or SundaeSwap, let us know in the comments down below. And if nothing else, we'll see you next week.